Today, we're tackling something really fundamental, how we actually arrive at our beliefs, especially now, with so much information and, let's be honest, a fair bit of noise out there. You see a claim take off online, maybe, or a viewpoint gaining traction, and you might wonder, okay, what's really behind that?
Exactly. And it's not just about what people believe, important as that is. It's about the reasoning, the way they support those beliefs. That's a crucial distinction, especially today.
And this brings us to some, well, really fascinating work from Rational Ruminations. Their core mission, it seems, is to make understanding the different types of reasoning we all use, well, more accessible. They're basically asking, how can we learn to sort of unpack the way people think? And maybe how to ask better questions about the claims we bump into every day.
It's really about equipping everyone, giving people the tools to analyze how beliefs are formed, rather than just getting stuck on whether a belief is right or wrong straight off the bat. And that approach, I think, is so important for navigating the complex stuff we face now.
Which leads us perfectly into what we're digging into today, the Street Epistemology Reasoning Trainer, or CERT for short. This is a tool they've made publicly available at GPT on chatgpt.com. Think of it as a way to kind of flex your critical thinking muscles, but in a really practical setting.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about CERT is whole design philosophy. It doesn't tell you what to believe, not at all. Instead, it focuses on exploring how a particular belief might be, justified, using 9 common ways of thinking, common reasoning types. And then it shows you how someone using street epistemology, which is this respectful, conversational method for understanding beliefs, might ask questions about those justifications.
So it's like getting a peek under the hood, isn't it? Looking at how beliefs are actually constructed. It's not about winning arguments or proving someone wrong. It's about understanding the architecture, the structure of how we build our understanding of the world. And Rational Ruminations, they've even looked at real examples, right? Claims that went viral, maybe misleadingly.
Yes, they have, to see where the reasoning kind of breaks down. And also to see how asking the right targeted questions can actually lead to clear thinking. By looking at these real-world cases, you start to see patterns. You see how weak reasoning can sometimes spread quite easily, and CERT gives you a structured way to dissect those patterns. So, shall we jump into these 9 common types of reasoning that CERT focuses on, starting with the 3 they say are the most frequent?
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's unpack the first of the big 3. Deductive reasoning. This is the one where you go from a general idea, a rule maybe, down to a specific conclusion, right?
That's the core of it, yes. Deductive reasoning aims for certainty. It wants to guarantee the conclusion is true. If, and this is the important part, if the initial statements, the premises are true. It's kind of like building a logical tower. If the base is solid and the structure is right,
then the top should be solid too?
Precisely.
Their example is the classic one. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates is mortal. Assuming we agree on those first 2 points, that all humans are mortal and Socrates was human, then the conclusion, yeah, it absolutely follows. It feels very secure, black and white.
Exactly. When a deductive argument has that valid structure, meaning the conclusion logically follows and its premises are actually true, what we call sound, it gives you that strong sense of certainty. But, and this is a key thing to watch out for, an argument can be logically valid in its structure, but if it's based on untrue premises, well, then the conclusion might be completely false, even though the logic looks okay.
Right, that's a really important distinction. Okay, so the second of the big 3 is inductive reasoning. And this feels like, well, the opposite direction, moving from specific things you've seen to a broader rule.
Precisely. Inductive reasoning is all about patterns. You look at what you've observed, maybe many times, and then you infer a general principle based on those specific observations. The standard example they give is, the sun has risen every single day of my life, therefore the sun will probably rise tomorrow.
Okay, right. I've seen it happen again and again, so I make the leap, the inference, that it'll happen again. But unlike deduction, this isn't a 100% guarantee, is it? There's always that tiny possibility, however remote, that, tomorrow's different.
That's the critical distinction. Induction gives us probabilities, not certainties. You gather more evidence, the probability gets stronger, maybe very strong, but you never quite reach that absolute 100% certainty you can get with sound deduction.
Got it. And the last of this main group, the big 3, is abductive reasoning. They call it inference to the best explanation. This sounds like detective work almost, trying to figure out what most likely happened given the clues.
It is very much like that. You have a set of facts or observations, and you're trying to find the most plausible explanation for them. Their example is simple but clear. The grass is wet. Okay, observation. If it rained, the grass would be wet. Plausible cause. Therefore, it probably rained. The inferred best explanation.
Okay, I get it. Wet grass is the clue. Rain is a likely cause. But, like they point out, it could also be wet from, say, a sprinkler or just morning dew. So the confidence level here, it's naturally lower than deduction.
Exactly. Abductive reasoning is fantastic for generating hypotheses, for suggesting possible explanations that are worth investigating. But it's often just the starting point. You then need to go and look for more evidence to see which explanation actually holds up best under scrutiny.
Okay, so those are the big three. Deductive, inductive, abductive. Very common. Now, let's explore some of the other interesting types of reasoning CERT highlights. First one up, analogical reasoning. This is all about drawing comparisons, making analogies, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Analogical reasoning works by finding similarities. If two things are similar in some known ways, you infer they might be similar in other ways too. The example of the human brain being like a computer is a good one they use. We know computers process information using electrical signals, right? So by analogy, we might infer the brain functions in a somewhat similar way. It can be really helpful for grasping complex ideas.
Yeah, relating something new to something you already understand makes sense. But I guess the danger is, well, analogies are never perfect matches, are they? We have to be careful not to oversimplify or assume the similarities run deeper than they actually do.
Precisely. The strength of any analogy really depends on how relevant and how numerous the shared features are.
Yeah.
Are they core features or just superficial ones?
Good point. Okay, next on the list is causal reasoning, figuring out what causes what. It seems pretty fundamental to how we navigate the world day to day.
It absolutely is. Causal reasoning is all about identifying those cause and effect relationships. The peanut allergy example they give, every time I eat peanuts, I get a rash. Therefore, peanuts may cause my rash, illustrates this perfectly. You observe a consistent link, a correlation perhaps, between two events, and you infer that one is causing the other.
But, and this is a big but we hear a lot, just because two things happen together, that correlation, it doesn't automatically mean one caused the other, does it? There could be some hidden factor, a third variable causing both, or it could just be pure coincidence sometime.
Absolutely. That's the classic correlation does not equal causation issue. Establishing genuine causal links often requires much more rigorous methods, careful studies, controlling for other variables, sometimes direct experimentation if possible.
Okay. Now, Bayesian reasoning. This one sounds a bit more technical. Something about probability and updating our beliefs when we get new information.
It is rooted in probability theory, Bayes' theorem specifically, but the core idea behind it is actually quite intuitive. Bayesian reasoning basically provides a mathematical framework for how we should logically adjust our confidence in a belief when we encounter new evidence. Think of it like this. You have an initial degree of belief about something, maybe a hunch, maybe based on prior data. Let's call that the prior probability. Then new information comes along, new evidence. Bayesian reasoning helps you calculate how much that new evidence should rationally shift your initial belief.
Ah, okay. And the medical test example helps here.
Yes. Imagine a test for a rare disease is, say, 99% accurate, so when test positive. You might think, wow, 99% chance they have it. But Bayesian reasoning tells you to factor in the rarity of the disease, the prior probability. If the disease is extremely rare, even a positive result from a very accurate test might still mean it's more likely a false positive than a true positive.
So it's about weighing how likely something was to begin with against the strength of the new evidence. It's a more nuanced way of thinking about evidence.
Exactly. It highlights that our existing knowledge, the base rates, are crucial context for interpreting any new information correctly.
Okay, moving on. Then we have moral or ethical reasoning. This shifts gears a bit, focusing on deciding what's right or wrong based on our values and principles.
That's right. This type of reasoning uses ethical frameworks, moral codes, principles to make judgments about conduct. What's morally acceptable, what's not. The example given, lying generally causes harm, therefore lying is wrong, shows how you can apply a general ethical principle perhaps related to minimizing harm to reach a specific moral conclusion. Of course, they add the caveat, under certain ethical systems.
It's interesting CERT includes this. It's a good reminder that not all our strongly held beliefs are purely about factual claims about the world. Some are deeply rooted in our sense of right and wrong, how things should be.
Exactly. Our values and moral commitments play a huge role in shaping many of our beliefs, especially those related to social or political issues.
Right. And next up is narrative reasoning, making sense of things through stories. This feels like a very deeply human way of understanding things.
It absolutely is. You could say humans are storytelling animals. Narrative reasoning involves constructing and understanding events, experiences, people through narratives. Stories with characters, plots, motivations, themes. This is often how we process our own personal experiences, make sense of history, even understand psychological concepts. The stories we tell ourselves and the ones we hear can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, our own life experiences, the stories maybe we heard growing up from family or community, they can really stick with us and shape our beliefs, sometimes even more than cold, hard data.
Yes, absolutely. Because narratives provide context, they provide meaning, they carry emotional weight, all of which can make them very, very persuasive and memorable.
Okay, and the final one on the list. Reflective or metacognitive reasoning. This sounds like thinking about your own thinking.
That's exactly what it is. Metacognition. Reflective reasoning is about stepping back and evaluating your own thought processes. Are my methods reliable? Am I being biased here? Am I jumping to conclusions? It involves being aware of your potential biases, questioning your own assumptions, considering how reliable your own reasoning actually is in a given situation. The example they use is perfect. Someone starping themselves and thinking, wait a minute, I might be biased here because I really want this conclusion to be true.
Ah, okay. So it's like becoming a critical observer of your own mind, recognizing your own potential blind spots or tendencies. That sounds like a vital skill, especially now.
It is indeed. Developing this kind of self-awareness, this metacognitive ability, is really key to improving the quality of our beliefs over time. And it makes us more open to potentially changing our minds when the evidence or reasoning warrants it.
Okay, so we've taken a good look at these 9 different ways of reasoning that CERT focuses on. Now, what's really illuminating is how this tool, CERT, actually applies these concepts to real-world claims. They give examples around climate change, politics, alternative medicine. Let's start with the climate change claim. Click subscribe. It's cheaper than hay and twice as fun.
Am I signing up for a channel or am I
Right.
trying to impress a herd of cows?
Yeah. Are they judging my YouTube habits?
I know, it's very strange.
Let's start with the climate change claim. Human activity is the main driver of climate change. How does CERT help us examine this claim through those different reasoning lenses?
Well, for each of those 9 reasoning types we just discussed, CERT shows you 2 things. First, an example of how that specific type of reasoning might be used to support the climate change claim. And second, crucially, it provides a street epistemology-inspired question designed to gently prompt deeper reflection on that specific justification. So, for instance, take deductive reasoning.
Okay.
The supporting claim might be framed like this. Premise 1. Burning fossil fuels releases greenhouse gases. Premise 2. Greenhouse gases trap heat in the atmosphere, causing warming. Conclusion. Therefore, burning fossil fuels contributes to global warming.
That sounds logical, right?
Yeah, seems to follow. But then the CERT prompt, the SE question, might be something like, okay, do we agree on the science behind both of those premises? Are they both well established? And are there any unspoken assumptions perhaps hidden in that chain of reasoning?
Ah, I see. So it gets the person to really examine the foundations of the argument, the premises themselves, not just jump to accepting the conclusion.
Precisely. Or, let's take inductive reasoning. Someone might support the claim by saying, look, we've seen a consistent rise in global average temperatures over the past century, coinciding with increased industrial activity. This pattern indicates human-caused climate change.
Makes sense, based on observation.
Right. But the CERT response then prompts a broader look. That's a clear trend. Could there be other natural cycles or contributing factors that might also play a role in the temperature fluctuations we've observed alongside human activity?
Again, it's not dismissing the observation at all, but encouraging a consideration of alternative or additional factors. Very subtle.
Exactly. Now, abductive reasoning inference to the best explanation. The claim might be, when you look at all the data, rising CO2, warming trends, melting ice the most compelling, the best explanation for all these observed changes is the impact of human-produced greenhouse gases.
Okay.
The CERT quorum then probes that comparative judgment. That makes sense as an explanation. What other possible explanations have you considered, perhaps? And what specifically led you to conclude that the human activity explanation is the strongest or most likely one compared to others?
That really pushes for a comparison of different ideas, doesn't it? And a reflection on the criteria used to decide which explanation is best.
Exactly. And let's try analogical reasoning. Someone might argue the Earth's atmosphere is basically like a greenhouse, or maybe like a blanket. The more greenhouse gases we pump into it, the thicker the blanket gets and the warmer we get underneath.
A common analogy.
Yes. And the CERT response encourages a critical look at the analogy itself. That's a helpful way to picture it. How well do you think that analogy, the blanket or the greenhouse, truly captures all the complexities of the Earth's actual climate system? Are there ways it might oversimplify things?
Highlighting that helpfulness doesn't always mean perfect accuracy. Analogies have limits.
Right. When it comes to causal reasoning, the claim might be put more directly. The measurable rise in atmospheric CO2 levels directly causes the observed increase in global average temperatures.
Asserting a direct cause-effect link.
Yes. And the CERT question then raises that crucial point about correlation versus causation we mentioned earlier. We definitely see these two trends happening together, rising CO2 and rising temperatures. How confident are scientists, and how do they establish that one is directly causing the other, rather than just being correlated, perhaps due to other factors?
A really important scientific question, pushing beyond just seeing two things happen at the same time.
Absolutely. Now, for Bayesian reasoning, the claim might be framed in terms of confidence. Given the overwhelming scientific consensus, the multiple lines of evidence, the climate models, I'm now like 95% or 99% confident that human activity is the main driver.
Okay, stating a high degree of belief based on evidence.
And the CERT response might explore the openness to future information. That's a high level of confidence based on the current evidence. What kind of new evidence, if any, might potentially cause you to revise that level of confidence, either up or down?
That's a direct way to gauge how firmly the belief is held, maybe, and what it would take for them to reconsider.
Interesting.
Then moral or ethical reasoning, the claim might shift. Even if there's a tiny sliver of uncertainty in the science, we have a clear moral responsibility to act as if human activity is the main driver, because the potential consequences of inaction are catastrophic.
Bringing in the ethical dimension. Yes. And the CERT response helps clarify the different types of justification at play. Okay, I hear the moral urgency there. Does this moral conviction primarily strengthen your view on the urgency of taking action? Or does it also strengthen your belief in the scientific evidence for the claim itself? Are those two things linked for you or separate?
That's a really important distinction, isn't it? Separating the ethical call to action from the assessment of the scientific evidence itself.
It can be, yes. For narrative reasoning, someone might share a personal story. My family has lived near the coast for generations, and we've personally seen the shoreline change. The sea levels rise dramatically just within my own lifetime. It's undeniable.
A powerful personal observation.
Very. And the CERT response might acknowledge the power of that story while prompting a connection to the bigger picture. That sounds like a really impactful personal experience. How has seeing that firsthand shaped your broader understanding of the causes of sea level rise on a global scale?
A gentle way to bridge personal experience with the broader scientific understanding.
Exactly. And finally, for reflective or metacognitive reasoning, maybe someone says, honestly, I just feel like it's true. It resonates with me, even if I can't perfectly articulate all the scientific details right now.
An appeal to intuition or feeling.
Right. And the CERT response gently prompts further self-exploration. Okay, if you were to try and explore the reasons or evidence that might be behind that strong feeling or intuition, what would be the first thing you might look into or think about?
Just a helpful nudge towards self-reflection, towards maybe unpacking that feeling a bit more. Wow. It's really fascinating to see how that same structured approach, asking those kinds of questions, can be applied across the board. They do the same thing for claims in politics and alternative medicine too, right? Like the political claim, oh, my political party cares more about working class people than the other side. CERT again shows how each reasoning type could support this, followed by a tailored SE question.
Yes, exactly the same framework. You see similar patterns emerge. For deductive reasoning in politics, maybe the claim is based on specific policies. Our party proposes policy X. Policy X benefits the working class, therefore our party cares more. The SE response might then ask, okay, let's look at policy X. Does the evidence show it consistently produces those benefits in practice? Are there unintended consequences?
Right. Questioning the premises again.
Or for inductive reasoning, maybe someone points to voting patterns. Look, working class districts consistently vote for our party. That shows we represent them. The SE question might explore other possibilities. That's an interesting pattern. Could other factors like cultural identity or historical alignment also explain those voting trends, besides just who cares more? What if you could challenge what you believe and come out stronger?
Ooh, interesting.
Start now at navigatingbeliefs.com.
So it's like they're almost daring you, right?
Yeah, like, do you
But
have the guts to really examine your beliefs?
I like it. Keeps you on your toes.
It really highlights how this consistent framework encourages a deeper look behind the belief, whatever the topic.
And the same for the alternative medicine claim, like homeopathy works better than conventional medicine for chronic conditions. CERT would explore how someone might use, say, inductive reasoning from personal anecdotes. I felt better after trying it. Or maybe abductive reasoning. Conventional medicine didn't help, so this must be the better explanation. And then it hits them with those targeted questions.
Precisely. For that inductive claim based on feeling better after homeopathy, the SE response might gently probe. That's great, you felt an improvement. Were there any other changes happening around that time? Maybe lifestyle changes, diet, stress levels, or even just the natural ups and downs of the condition itself that could also have contributed to you feeling better?
Looking for confounding variables, essentially.
Exactly. This consistent approach across such diverse topics really underscores how CERT helps users focus on the process, the underlying reasoning, not just the surface-level claim itself.
It really drives home their point, doesn't it? That the tool isn't about trying to directly change someone's mind or win a debate. It's about fostering a deeper understanding of why they believe what they do. And by asking these carefully crafted, respectful questions, it encourages a more thoughtful, more critical engagement with their own reasoning.
Precisely. It's about cultivating better thinking habits, you could say, and hopefully encouraging more constructive conversations by shifting the focus slightly onto the process of reasoning itself.
So, to sort of bring it all together then, this Street Epistemology Reasoning Trainer, the CERT tool from Rational Ruminations, it provides a really accessible, quite practical way to examine the different ways we all justify our beliefs, whether that's through, strict logic like deduction, or observing patterns with induction, or finding the best explanation via abduction, or using stories or analogies, or any of those 9 types we've talked about.
And what's particularly valuable, I think, is that it gives us a common framework, a shared language almost, for understanding the how behind our beliefs across a huge range of topics, from big scientific debates like climate change, right down to our really personal convictions about politics or health choices or morality.
And just having a better handle on these different ways of reasoning and knowing how to ask good, respectful questions about them, that feels incredibly important, doesn't it? For just navigating the sheer complexity of the information landscape we all live in now.
It really does. By becoming more aware, more mindful of the reasoning that we ourselves use and the reasoning others employ, we stand a much better chance, I think, of having more productive conversations and just generally becoming more discerning consumers and producers of information.
On that note, here's something maybe for you, the listener, to think about. Consider the kinds of reasoning you find yourself leaning on most often. Are you someone who really prioritizes logic and deduction? Do you find yourself persuaded more by data and statistics? Or perhaps you tend to be more influenced by personal experiences, by stories, by that narrative reasoning we discussed. Maybe intuition. Could exploring a tool like CERT, or even just thinking through these 9 types, help you better understand the foundations of your own most cherished beliefs? Might it help uncover some assumptions you hadn't really considered before? It's definitely, I think, a worthwhile area for a bit of self-reflection. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.